Welcome back to another episode of the If You Can't See podcast. My name is Sajandeep and I'm joined by Darren and Shy. In this episode, we'll be discussing about electric vehicles and self-driving cars. Before we begin, Darren, Shy, how you guys doing? Thank you for joining me.
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. Shy?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be a part of this episode. I find the self-driving cars and electric vehicles kind of interesting.
Awesome. I don't personally own one, but my family I've live with, we have one. It is the Tesla Model 3 2023 Hardware 3. Hardware 3 I mentioned is very important. I'll get to that later as we move forward with the podcast. But it is a very interesting topic because you know how technology moves so fast, even with phones. It could be anything actually. You buy something, you're like, oh, I'm gonna wait for. Let's just say, for example, you hear leaks and rumors that there's a new gadget coming out. It could be anything. You're like, you know what, I want to wait for this one and then I'll buy it. But then you do, but you always in the back of your head is like it's going to be obsolete at some point. Teslas are not cheap by any means. What do you guys think of EVs in general? Like, I know they're like quiet. It is controversial for some blind, low vision people because when it's stopped at a red light, you can't hear anything because there's no sounds that it's making.
I think the biggest thing about EVs that people talk about a lot, there's two things. One is that they are really expensive, which does make sense because I mean, any new thing that comes out does end up being like that, but then eventually when it becomes like more of a mainstream thing, right? Remember when maybe the first iPhone came out, maybe I don't know how expensive that might have been at the time, but maybe for quite a few people, people might have thought it's really expensive. I mean, iPhones are still pretty expensive, but like again, the thing is, the more mainstream things get, then they're not as expensive. So that's kind of
Yeah, it's
oh,
because the tooling is available, right? Because for new the R&D, the all the back end stuff is really expensive, research and development and all that. Making the tools to make something at a mass production is, not a easy thing to do. And Tesla being a new company, they started off with a really expensive sports car, and whatever money they made off of that, they put into the next expensive car, then the next expensive car, and now the cheapest car that they currently have. But it's still very expensive.
It's interesting that, I remember back in the day they had hybrid vehicles, and, me being young, my uncle actually got one of the first like hybrid Audis. And
Hmm.
it was so fascinating to me. I'm like, hybrid? So it has gas and electricity? And I've
yeah.
noticed that you don't see that like nowadays. It's either electric or not. And like I think during this time too, like you had like Priuses, people were made fun of for owning a Prius because it was electric and you were either like, yeah, it was very politically incorrect back then, but you're considered like a granola person who was vegan and stuff. But nowadays it just seems like just as common as a regular car.
No, yeah,
I love
definitely.
the I love the way she said back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah. Well,
Back in the day.
I remember a couple of years ago, when my dad was a taxi driver. He'd been through a couple of cars, and the latest one that he had was a hybrid. And at first you're like, oh shoot, then now I have a plug or an outlet on my car to charge, and then the other side is the gas port. But no, the gas, yeah, the engine will still like power the battery. You don't have to like charge that separately with hybrid cars. But I know there are cars out there like sports cars and stuff that run for like a couple of 100 kilometers on battery power separately, and then it will kick in for the gas portion. And those cars actually have both different, like there's a charging outlet on one side and then the gas tank on the other side. Um, but hybrids are mainly when you're at I think 40 kilometers or 20 kilometers per hour. When you're traveling at that rate, it will switch over to battery, and then it will the engine will kick in later on. I think those are really popular in those, you know, taxis and Ubers and stuff, because especially for stop and go traffic, they save a lot of gas.
But the hybrid vehicles are really scary. I don't know why. Like, okay, I remember being in one hybrid vehicle. You know how like when they stop at a light, like it feels like they completely shut off. And
Yeah.
the second you're about to go, it sounds like now the car is about to start up. Is someone going to hit the car by the time going to start moving? Like it's so fascinating. Like it's the sounds that they catch me off guard every time.
I don't know, guys, if you ever heard some cars. I've seen them sometimes when they're are at 0 kilometers per hour, then the engine turns off, and then as they switch shift back into gear, the engine kicks in again, and then you're driving again. It's not hybrid. It's just that it turns off the engine.
Yeah, I think like one of our cars does that, like our truck. Like
Yeah.
when you're stopped at a light for a certain amount of time, it'll just turn the engine off because of idling and stuff.
Right. Because
Yeah, but that seems so scary when that happens. Because then when it starts up, you're like, "Oh, is someone gonna hit the car from behind by the time we're gonna get ready to go?"
well, no, it does start up right, quite fast. But like
It
my
does, but it's really scary for it's really scary for someone who maybe went in a vehicle like that maybe for the first time as a
yeah,
blind person.
it is kind of scary for the winter time, because you don't know if the engine is getting older, and then you're like, will this thing start off with the weather, if it's like minus 40 or something, and you're traveling. Do you know, Shy, if the engine, you can like turn that feature off?
I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure it's just standard because like I know with VW they had their controversy with the emissions tests and everything, and so now to like kind of like counter that, they have it by default, but I'm pretty sure if you know like a good mechanic, they can figure that out.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting. Let me ask you this question. Did you guys ever like watched like a video on full self-driving before?
I've seen the ones where it's like the Waymos in California and whatever, and they're like stopped in traffic. I've seen those. And
Right.
those like kind of freak me out, but I find the whole concept of self-driving kind of fascinating.
Fascinating, you mean in like scary, like you are a little, hesitant of trying or getting into one? Because I know some people are. How about you, Darren? Well, actually, before I move on to Darren, yeah, you can complete your thoughts. Sorry, Shine.
Well, I think it all depends because see, I don't drive, I don't have my license. Someday I'd like to get my license, and if this is an avenue to go about it, then maybe. But I already like have issues trusting like AI in general. And I feel like with like self-driving cars, who knows what's gonna happen? Because I've seen videos of like Waymos just parked in the middle of the road. And just like people who are like taunting like the person inside, just stopping the car and standing in front of it.
Mm,
And like, that's been a whole issue. But I think that's more of like people issue than it is car issue.
interesting. How about you, Darren?
I haven't seen any videos like that, yo. I can't lie. I have heard lots of incidents of people having issues with those cars, like if they are fully automatic, or sorry, fully self-driving. Some people have brought up issues that they think will happen. Some actually completely think that nothing will happen at all, and eventually technology will just get so better and will improve day by day. But I haven't seen any video like that, so I can't say. Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to tell you because obviously I can't see the video.
Right, right. No, but like they are really, really descriptive, actually. Um, I was just curious, like because you haven't seen those videos, will you be comfortable sitting in one that drives on its own?
I definitely would be because I don't know, like at that point, it should be at that point it should be good enough for people like us to be able to take the car in general. Like wouldn't they just say it's not legal to use a car that's fully self-driving if they don't think it's safe yet?
Yeah, definitely. I see where you're coming from, but I know because I've talked to some people. And they were like, "You will never see me, even though yes, I'm blind, but you will never see me sit behind a vehicle that drives on its own. I trust a human with two pair of eyes more over a car that has 8 cameras or 10 cameras that can see in 360 view of itself to make sure that nothing's happening."
Again, that's everyone's opinion, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, definitely.
everyone,
But that's what same
someone's stronger than some people are stronger than others in those sense of they're more brave. They're like, you know what, let's just take the risk. And the reason I'm not saying it's a risk at that point is because it should be legal by then in order for us to be able to drive it in the first place. You know what I'm trying to say?
right. I know I mean they're taking as many things into consideration, but currently, like I was mentioning earlier, we have hardware 3. Recent cars, I think they came out late 2023, early 2024. They have hardware 4. Now there's a new Tesla that has the Model Y. They call it the Jupiter, I think. And they have a camera on the bumper where the other ones only have 8 cameras. The new one has 9 cameras. It can see things a little lower. Now, what they're doing is with hardware 5, they noticed that the cameras, they get, in different scenarios, if it's raining or something, or a splash from a big truck, uh, cameras are lower on the car. They get splashed and they get dirty. And obviously, if there's no driver sitting in the car right now, it's full self-driving supervised. That's what they call it. So basically, a driver who owns the car has to sit and they have to monitor what the car is doing and still take over if it does something stupid, because it's still in testing phases, and that's why they call it supervised. Yes, you don't have to touch the wheel at all. Before, you had to like touch the wheel every 30 seconds or so to let the car know that you were paying attention. But there is a rear view camera in the rear view mirror. Yeah, there's that camera there, and it's looking at the driver at all times to make sure that they don't have a phone in their hand, they're not distracted, and if they are distracted, it will make some chiming sounds to make pay attention. And then if you ignore it, it will get aggressive, it will get louder, and if you still don't pay attention, it will pull over and turn on the hazard lights and stay until, and then you cannot use self-driving for that rest of the trip. And I think,
Wow.
yeah, and currently I think you have, I don't know, I think 10 strikes or something like that. And if you do get 10 strikes, you cannot use self-driving anymore on
Wait,
that
at
car.
all
On that car, yeah.
on
Because
that car?
for I think every 2 months or so, your streak or your strike goes away if you don't have any issues. So if you are constantly using full self-driving and you don't have any issues for like 2 months, for example, it will remove that strike. So it's very hard to get to 10. You could be a really bad driver and you could be
Yeah, there's tons of people out there. I don't think it's hard to, but
well, no, well, to get
nothing is
10
hard.
to get 10 strikes, especially when they do disappear after 2 months or so, or a month. I don't know what the exact date is.
No, but still, there are people out there who don't listen at all. There are people out there. 10 strikes is not a big thing.
Well, it is not a big thing for people who like do testing, because I know people are like, oh, what happens if I make a 3D model of a human who's sitting there looking out the window? Will the drive,
Uh,
will the Tesla still drive and fake? Can I fake the thing? And I think maybe once or twice they got it to work, but not for long.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, what are they doing for those cameras then? Like, if it rains and the water splashes all over the
So that's what I
cameras.
was. Yeah. So exactly. So what's going on is with hardware 5, especially sorry, with the Juniper model anyway, the bumper camera that they introduced and the the backup camera, they both have washers, so it uses the same uh, wiper fluid that you have in the car, and they added more motors and stuff and wiring to those cameras. And if it's driving and it notices that the camera is, you know, dirty, it will automatically clean the camera.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's really neat, but it makes me wonder, like, that must be hard for mechanics to get into and like fix things.
Yeah. No, it is. I think the more complicated we make these cars, and, it is going to be hard, definitely. But there is a big company, right to repair. They forced Apple, and how big a company Apple is, a 3 trillion, almost $4 trillion company. Every Nothing was really, repairable, and they forced Apple even to make documentation and make your hardware more easy to repair.
I'm kind of familiar with right to repair, but like I have family who works in like different auto shops or not even auto shops, like dealerships.
Hmm.
And their whole thing, their biggest complaint is as cars have gotten more complicated internally, it's been a lot harder for them to do the repairs necessary in general, like coming from a dealership to work on these things. So I couldn't imagine like some average Joe tinkering around on their like electric car if the hardware gets too complicated.
Oh yeah, I
That
do.
does, yeah.
I do definitely agree with that. There are, because like for like Tesla and Apple, I find that Tesla and Apple, people like who have that user base or fan base, they make a ton and thousands of videos on how to do repair, how to more how to videos. Like you won't see as many, I find, with like maybe BMW or Honda. But I find like Tesla and Apple, there's like a whole different people there.
That does make sense.
But the reason why I was asking you earlier about full self driving, what you guys think and stuff, for me, I feel like people who haven't seen how the technology has evolved over the years, they have no idea. Now, for me, I feel more comfortable sitting in one because I know what the strengths are and what the weaknesses are, where it can fail, where it has a hard time with, where it doesn't, because I've watched so many videos and I've seen it improve. Now, my car is stuck with hardware 3, and Tesla finally came out and they mentioned that people who have hardware 3 and hardware 2 cars, before, they were saying the way that they pitched it was, if you buy a car now, so this was in like 2022, for example, if you buy a car now, in the future, your car will be, you can use your own car as a robo taxi service. So basically, if you are willing to use your, want to make money without sitting in the car, once this technology is ready, with a software update, you can, send your car out and it will pick people and drop them off and it'll make you money. Right. And at that time, yeah, it was a big statement from Elon Musk and Tesla. Personally, I didn't think that was possible because there was nothing there, and I know that these cars already had cameras and stuff, but I knew that you know they would need hardware improvements and upgrades and stuff. So those people who bought full self driving back then, the car was its own expense, but then there was another expense, which was the full self driving package, which was, I think back then it was $20,000, and or it was $200 a month. And if you bought it let's just say as a subscription, you bought it for $200 a month. Those $200 did not go towards that 20,000. So
Oh,
it was either you pay 200 as a subscription, ongoing subscription, or you pay $20,000 upfront, and now full self driving is yours. At that time, it was really robotic. No one really wanted to pay for it, but because Tesla's like, oh, in the future with the software update, you can get your car out there and it will make money for you. Like they were really on it, right? They were like really confident that it was doable. That's why you don't buy something for its future update, because you never know if that promise will be ever met with the current hardware. They may think it is, but no, I never do that. So what happened now is Tesla. I know there's more podcasts is more on focusing on Tesla because that's the one I have, and I know I have the back end knowledge on it. But the thing is that they came out and they said that, sorry, hardware 3, even hardware 3, 2, and 3.5 or whatever it was, or 2.5, will not be able to do this. So they are working on basically giving people, I think they're giving people two different options. People who paid the $20,000 or $10,000, because when AI came along, like ChatGPT came, things changed quite a bit for Tesla. They completely scrapped the way that they were training their cars. It was basically C++ code. Basically, if you're at a stop sign, it was like, okay, you wait for maybe like 10 seconds or whatever. And then if there are no cars or vehicles within these many centimeters from the car, then drive. Otherwise, or if a human comes 10 centimeters close to the car, don't go anywhere. Once it moves out of the way, then move. It was really robotic. And if something got close to the car, it will slam on the brakes, and it was not comfortable experience whatsoever. But when ChatGPT came along and AI started, booming, Tesla basically took that and they're like, okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna train our cars on videos of like good driving, anyways, not obviously aggressive drivers, drivers that drive properly, like a sane person. We're going to take those people's videos and we're going to feed it into our AI system. And the car is basically going to go in these scenarios and look back at those videos and drive. And they removed, like thousands and thousands of C++ code ever since then. And because they noticed that, that developers don't have to do too much work on this anymore, that's why they reduced the price from 20,000 to 10,000 and the monthly from 200 to 100. Recently, though, they got rid of the ability to purchase. Now it's only a subscription. People who bought it, they get to keep it for that car. They can't transfer it to a new car in the future. There are some times where referral codes come by and they allow some people to switch, but you have to be in that time zone. If you don't, you don't. It's a very sticky situation. It's not fair for everyone, actually, I find. But I think I talked a lot now. To
but
me,
that's really interesting. Oh,
it is, yeah. Go ahead, Shen.
I was gonna repeat what Darren said. Yeah, that is interesting. I've noticed a lot of subscription models with cars in general, like electric or not. And I don't know. I think if you buy a car, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. I mean, it's different if you're like financing it, but regardless, like if you own the vehicle, then it's yours. You shouldn't have to pay anything extra.
Okay, so
yeah,
let
I
me ask
agree
you
on
this.
that because you are still paying for car insurance over top of that too.
No, that I agree with. So now, Cheyenne, you mentioned other subscriptions. Now, I'm going to say full self driving. I'll tell you why it's a subscription. I think they're starting to realize what's going on. But like BMW, remember there was a BMW car that had the hardware to have heated or cooled seats, but they're like, oh, we're gonna get our customers to pay $10 a month just to unlock it so they can use it. That was really stupid. They did back off of that. Thank God. Or I think even like full self, if you want to have your car start with a remote or with your phone, you got to pay a $10 subscription for it. But for self driving, the reason why I find full self driving it's okay to pay that much anyway. Um, I think people who actually own their car, they should be still able to buy it outright for a certain amount and not have a subscription. But I think the reason why they kind of lean more into a subscription based is the servers. They are not, cheap to run. They get hot. They got to replace the water cooling and whatever else they got to do. They got to change the RAMs. They got to change, and those servers are not easy to maintain. Um, and energy cost, all that stuff. That's where that comes from. But I feel like you mentioned, Shy, about like BMW, like I mentioned earlier, asking customers to pay for the hardware that's already in the car. Yeah, that's unacceptable. I feel like.
Yes, totally. The servers make sense. Like if you go and buy a domain for a website, like you have to pay a monthly or yearly or however. And I think that's kind of the same for self-driving because like, they still need the training data and everything and all your routes and stuff.
Right.
That shouldn't be for the hardware. Okay, I heard this other thing about the Tesla. This other thing that I heard about the Tesla was that the people who bought the Tesla when it came are going to have free, like lifetime free battery charging, free battery charging, like uh free battery charging. So whenever they go to this charging station, they can always get it for free because they got the Tesla when it first came out.
Yeah, and that's only for that car. Like if they
Oh, only
upgrade,
for that car.
yeah, it was only for that car. If they upgrade to a new car, they don't have that perk anymore. It
That's
was just
ridiculous.
Well, it was for people who basically invested into Tesla, who was because Tesla was very new, right? Uh, back
Yeah, that
then,
does make sense,
like
but
like like
still, I don't
back
know.
then, the battery, the whole new thing was completely new. Do you want because there's like 1,001 other companies out there making gas cars, and this new company that just started back then. I mean, people still complain with Tesla where their quality control isn't the best. When they first get their cars, there's some panel gaps and stuff, but which they do resolve. It's just that if you pay a certain 90,000 or whatever it is for a car, I kind of expect my car to be spotless and you know and I know sometimes there's rattles and here and there things happen because of production, but there's a lot and they're finally addressing that with their new cars. But back then they had that issue a lot, and also the comfort, the being that expensive, the insides isn't as luxury as if you go for a BMW for that same price, for example. Like the luxury level was quite higher, but you were paying more into the tech with Tesla than you were with the other cars. You're paying for premium, just whole different things. This is whatever you valued at that time, right? And yeah, it was super charging. That's what it was, like the fast charging network that they have when you travel. And that was free for those people. And those cars are still working to this day, I think. They're old, but they're still.
Wait, that does make sense. Okay, but still, I think if since they already, I think it should be tied to their account. or something that if they still did invest, it should still be like that for them at least. Not for anyone else, maybe no, but at least for them, it should still stay the same. I don't know.
I don't. Again, I have no idea what the stats is and like how many people are there. Maybe if they're like thousands and thousands, and if they can't afford it, then they're not going to give it. But if they maybe if there were less people, maybe they could have afforded it and they could have allowed that feature. But who knows?
Interesting.
I don't have the
Yeah.
data.
One of the things I've noticed is that Teslas make a weird noise when they're pulling out of driveways. Is that customizable? Like, that's always fascinated me.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that sound is only in reverse, and as you go faster, it will start making a faster, right? Not higher pitch. My pitch changed. The pitch stays the same, but the speed changes of the sound when you reverse out. And you can't change that sound. But however, if you are parked, you are allowed to change your horn sound. So when you press the horn, it will make a different sound. You can even use a USB stick with like different sounds as well. I don't know if that stays when you're in drive because I think because it's a speaker, it's not as loud. They want to use an actual real horn when you're driving. But if you want to have fun or whatever, you can do that. But you can't change the reverse sound.
I know my gym teacher back at our school got like the Tesla when it first like came out,
Oh yeah.
and guy used to play games in the Tesla, like sitting in the Tesla before actually heading off to work, like going back into the school to go to the gym. It used to be really funny because like back then like the Tesla used to have so many crazy sound effects and like the crazy sound effects when you would experiment around with things.
No, yeah, they still have games, and you can use the steering wheel and the brake pedal to like drive in the games. So if you like playing Mario, for example, I don't even know if there is Mario in the car. Actually, I'm just guessing. Any like vehicle car, I think Mario's in it. I'm not 100% sure. Um, because Teslas don't have screen readers, I didn't really play with the menu system too much. And what kind of games there are, but you can use the steering wheel. And the reason why people don't like because you're parked, and when you're parked, you don't want to be moving the wheels. People have like requested Tesla maybe when the car is parked, maybe the steering wheel gets disconnected internally from the actual tires. So when they're playing games in the car, it doesn't ruin their wheels outside.
Oh yeah, because that could be a big problem,
Yeah,
right?
because you'll be like, wearing out your tires by just moving them side to side.
Isn't it harder to like replace Tesla parts compared to like any other car? Like, isn't it more like,
What part though? They are more expensive, I'll tell you that. But I don't know if it's harder. I mean, obviously, if you're
sorry, I meant more in as in a more expensive, like on the more expensive route. Like, for example, like if I have like a Honda Accord, right,
Mhm.
which is not a electric vehicle,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Okay, like okay, maybe the brakes might cost me like 400, 500, maybe even like 600 or whatnot, right? How much would the brakes for Tesla cost then in that cost? Or in that case, sorry.
I never replaced my. I've owned it. I've owned the car since 2000, late 2023. So in November, I think I got it. In November, December, I got that car, and now it's um June of 2026. Cool. And we still haven't changed our brake pads because electric cars use regenerative braking, and it's one pedal driving, where the other cars, when you're driving, you let go of the if the car is in drive, for example, and you let go the brake pedal, you put the car in drive, it will start moving on its own slowly forward. You have to hit the brake button. Teslas, if you put the car in drive, it won't move. Constantly is like braking itself basically, and then as soon as you hit the gas button it will go, but then as soon as you lift, regular gas cars will keep rolling at that speed and slowly stop whenever it stops, and people have to press that pedal, the brake pedal, to actually get the car to stop. Where Teslas or electric cars who use the regenerative braking, as soon as you let go of that pedal, it will start braking. Now, you have to be, at first, it's kind of difficult because you have to get, used to do it because all these years you've been driving a gas car. It's like basically a clamp, basically. So, for example, as you're driving and you're pressing the accelerator, as soon as you don't want to let go of the pedal completely because otherwise it'll just go to like a halt, and you don't want that. That won't be comfortable, and you'll get rear-ended. You want to basically slowly let go of that pedal, depending on how far the other car is and you're judging and stuff. But you rarely and when you do that, your brake pads, sorry, are not being used at all. It's basically sending the energy back into the battery and slowing down your car. So the brake pads are not even used. The issue that people have with cars, Tesla recommends users to sometimes, even when it's parked or whatever, to just tap the brake, get it to move, because otherwise it will seize, because a lot of people don't use it. You don't need to use it.
That's very interesting. Okay, that's actually good to know. That's
That
very
Yeah,
interesting.
that's why, like, when they're cyber not the cyber truck, the semi truck. I remember listening to the when Elon was like revealing that, they were saying that truck will the pads will last about 1,000,000 miles on the brake pads, because you really have to use them. There will be some times where you have to, because if the regen isn't strong enough, it's not going to stop you close, fast enough. Sorry, then you will hit the pedal there. Shai, what do you think of one pedal driving? I know you haven't driven a car, but what do you think?
I think it'd be confusing. It's kind of like the switch between like standard versus automatic.
Actually, yeah, that is kind of true. You're like, oh shoot, because you normally have your hand on the gear stalk and you're moving it side to side, depending on how fast you're going. Versus the one that newer cars is doing it automatically. You don't have to have your hand there. But yeah, I see where you're coming from.
That does make sense. That's with almost anything, right? Like that was just with us, for example, switching like from like an iPhone SE to like an iPhone 16 Plus, like learning how like there's now no more home button.
All right. Yes.
You gotta get used to using Face ID instead of Touch ID, right? So it's something that you would just eventually start getting used to after like a few weeks or a few months. Not even months. I think it would be a few weeks more than
Yeah, it
anything.
is. It is, but it is more scarier because you're on the street and you're moving at, like.
There's that, and then the other thing is that if you ever have to drive someone else's car, like
Oh
for
yeah,
something,
yeah.
then you'd be really scared because you'd be like, I'm used to my car, and my car doesn't work like this anymore.
But the nice thing with the Tesla and newer cars that they're doing is the full the software updates. And the way that Tesla works is they do a really big update with new features and stuff for cars. The December, the holiday update, they call it, during Christmas, and they do one for spring. So for, I think, for the holiday update there, they added some fun features where when you turn on the blinker, it will make the jingle bell sounds. Something that's completely fun, something out of like. But there are some useful features where um, they've worked on the. You don't have to worry about basically adding, or sorry, turning your high beams on and off. It will automatically adjust it. So you know how, if you're driving and there's a car in front of you on the opposite side at night and they have their high beams on, they like blind you. Teslas
Yeah.
Yeah,
Teslas will notice, oh, there's a car coming, because lights, the headlights on those cars are LED lights, then they're individually controlled. they worked on software where if there's a car coming from the opposite side, it can see how, where it's at. It will turn off those high beams on that side of the street, so it won't blind the other person, but your high beams are still technically on. And then
That's fascinating.
once the car passes, it will turn back on again.
That's fascinating.
So things like that, small little features like that, and then they will improve the efficiency. They've added where on the lock screen when Apple introduced live activities with iOS, I think 26 or 20 or 18, whenever it was, Tesla came up and they allowed the users to see the live when the car is charging on how fast it's charging, and on the lock screen. You don't even have to open the Tesla app to see the percentage. It's just constantly telling you.
Interesting. Wait, my question that I have is that how does how does the battery work on the Tesla? Like, if it's too hot outside, does the battery heat up, or like does the system heat up, or does anything like that ever happen? Has that glitch ever happened or been reported before?
You know, yes and no. So this is the thing with with battery cars, because batteries in general, they like to be in the same temperature as humans. Where if you feel hot, guess what? Your batteries in your phone, in your Tesla, wherever it is, they're also hot. If you feel cold, they're also basically in their uncomfortable state whenever you are
Yeah,
at your uncomfortable
yeah.
state. That's how batteries work. And yes, Tesla does have pads and you know things in the car to keep the battery at a room temperature at most times. I've seen in the summertime, if the car is left out, it will turn on something called overheat protection, and it will start blasting the AC, or it will roll down the windows to bring back the temperature. And in the summer or in the winter time, it will turn on over, or I can't remember the exact name. What would they use? But yeah, it will start heating the car up or the batteries, making sure that the battery doesn't overheat. And because batteries need to be a little warmer if you want the fast charging. So, for example, let's just say when you have, so if you're traveling, let's just say from Ottawa to Toronto, for example, um, so it's a 4 hour trip. Let's just say you have to charge one time before you get to your destination. Cool. You it's They recommend to put your address, your destination into the GPS, because as you're driving, it will constantly calculate your speed, the wind outside, and it will constantly update what the battery percentage is going to be when you get to a certain stop. And it may update that, hey, before it may say, okay, stop at Kingston and then charge there. Or it may say, oh, shoot, maybe you're using more battery because you're a more aggressive driver. Maybe if you're a chill driver, it may give you a further stop. And it will tell you to charge. It will tell you for how long you want to charge for. And as you're approaching it, it will start preparing the battery. It will start heating up the battery if it needs to heat up, or if it will cool down the battery if it needs to be cooled down, to get the most efficient charging when you're there. So it charges fast.
That's nice.
So
Okay,
there's
that's actually
there's a
cool.
lot
This
of
is really cool information to get out of this.
oh yeah, there's a lot of technology that's that over the years that they've you know put the thought into, and
But
you
still, what will they still do about the camera? Like, will they put something over the camera, like to like protect the sensors, so like they don't get mud on them or get anything on them? Still, are they doing anything for that?
yeah, because they did notice that the car, because you know how humans, we have obviously sunglasses, right? They are putting some sort of coating on the glass, but they thought of that, but then they're like, if it's nighttime, then they can't see anything. You know how we have the UV sunglasses where when you're outside, it turns dark, and then you come back inside, it turns back to clear again.
Yeah.
They're
Transitionals?
yeah, transitional sunglasses. Yeah, um, they're trying something that kind of technology with the Tesla, but because it's outside at all times, uh, the when the sun is like blasting at cameras, it's kind of hard to see. So that's when it will be able to turn that on and then darken the glass. They already added washers to cameras, but with hardware 5, they're thinking to add washers to all 5 or 10 cameras. So the cars will get more expensive because they're adding more technology to it. And like you said, Shy, it's going to be, the more that they add to it, the more difficult, and there will be more parts for it to, break and stuff. Which kind of sucks, but like it will be kind of cool for the car to like do. They are making robots basically when you get to a destination, like a charging station, sorry, a robot arm will basically take the charger and will plug it into the car. So you don't have to do that. I mean, it's fine for us. We can still do it. It's just that they're doing it for the, if you're sending your car out to drive on its own to, make you money, obviously it's not going to stay charged at all times. It has to charge
Yeah, and plus you
somewhere.
don't want anyone else do it. And plus you don't want anyone else touching the car in that way either. So it's kind
Right.
of good if the
Because
robot will
right
do
now,
that.
what the issue is, for example, you know how sometimes people say never sit in your Tesla when it's charging? Because let's just say, because you cannot drive away because it's plugged in, right? And it's dangerous in a way that, let's just say, if you're sitting in your car, someone came with a knife or something to like threaten you, you can't drive off because your car is charging. So that they say that don't sit in your car when you're charging in that.
That
And
makes
there
lots of
are,
sense.
yeah, and there are companies who made adapters, one-time use adapters, where it's like a magnetic kind of connector, and if you want to sit in your car you can. It's just that when you hit the gas, it will it will detach. Basically, you click on stop charging in the car, in the Tesla, and it will stop charging, and then you can hit the gas and it will just break off and you can go. It won't damage the charger or your port. It's just that the adapter that you buy, that will get damaged. It's a $20 thing, just in case if you're traveling and you want to have that safety, you have it. But I'm sure, with this robot thing, that will come in handy as well. You can, sit and then you can hit the button, and then the robot will like just detach the cable, and then you can drive off if you need to, unless if the person broke the, you know,
I mean another I mean another cool thing would be, you know how like you guys said that there's gonna be more parts more parts being added to the car, which means more parts will. Well,
fail,
I mean,
break, yeah.
yeah. So as you guys said, there will be more parts being added to the car, which will be a cool thing too, which means more jobs as well, because this will take more people to work on different parts. They'll have to study more, or I don't know. That's actually really cool. Anything to do with technology like that is actually really cool. I don't know. I find it really fascinating. I wish we had robotics when we used to do schooling as well, but unfortunately not back then. I mean, my cousins have robotics now, so they go into like these competitions where like you have to make a robot do something, and whoever can make the robot do the task ends up winning the trophy or whatnot. So
Well, that's kind of interesting, yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting actually. They've actually won some competitions too. The reason I'm bringing that up is like we're really going more and more and more into the technology as the years are going to keep advancing, so which is really interesting and cool.
Oh yeah, they all have weaknesses and strengths, but
It was
so,
fun being on this episode today, honestly.
yeah. Before we do end off, I was wondering if Cheyenne, do you have
Right?
any questions?
I think it's really cool that, this technology is still emerging. And I really enjoyed learning about electric cars. Thanks for having me on.
No
Thanks for
problem.
having me here as well.
No problem. No problem. I think it was fun. And I hope our audience learned a few things about Teslas and their more comfort. Because I know there's stories of Tesla catching fire and all that. Um, and I mean, batteries are batteries. Phones have blown up in elevators before. You never know what's gonna happen. I will just say one thing before I do end this episode, and I know I'm putting it in the wrong spot. It is a big safety thing, at least for Teslas, because Teslas roll down their windows slightly when you open the door, because otherwise it's like the whole frame doesn't open like most cars do. The glass, when you like hit the button or you pull the handle, the glass electronically rolls down, and then you can pull the door open. You don't have to really wait for it. It does it sort of, quite fast. But because it's electric, let's just say for whatever reason the electric system fails, and you're stuck inside the Tesla, there is emergency latch on the inside of the door that you can use, and that's very important to know as an owner, or even if you're traveling in one for Uber or whatever, because in case that situation occurs, at least you know now that that button is not going to open the door. You can press it 1,000 times, but if the electric system isn't working, then you're going to have to use the backup method.
That's crazy.
It is, right? Because there's another
That
learning.
sounds so scary. Imagine like, okay, imagine, okay, there's one situation, for example, where you're with family, right? And something like that happens, you'll panic less. Yo, imagine being in an Uber vehicle like that someone else owns.
Oh yeah.
They've dropped you off at a location, and now like you're in their car and there's no one else there for you. I don't know.
No. It
That's
is
kind of
it is definitely more scary. And even though, yeah, we can tell you all this time, there's emergency latch or whatever, but when you're scared and you're in that zone of, what's that word I'm looking for?
no one thinks at that time. Yeah, you can't think
You
at that
can't
time when
think
you're in the
straight
zone.
and you won't know what to do. So, and for whatever reason, actually, the rear doors, I learned myself, they're actually more difficult to get to. You have to like pry something and it's like underneath, where the front ones, the passenger and the driver ones, are like just exposed. You can actually grab onto the handle and open it. But the rear ones are not like that. But anyway, thank you for
That's
having
a
me.
crazy note to end. That's a crazy note to end the episode off. Wow,
Oh yeah, I know,
talking
right?
about talking about the good things about Tesla. Oh, by the way, guys, I forgot to tell you about the safety.
I know, I know. But anyway, thank you for having me. Sorry, thanks for having. Whoops. Thanks for being on this episode with me, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bruh.
Thank you, Darren and Shy, for being on this episode, and so happy that you guys learned something. And I have no doubts that our listeners, I'm sure they learned something, a thing or two, especially that safety one if they do end up watching the whole entire thing, and or listening to the whole entire thing. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Stay tuned.